All right, we are live. So before I do introductions, I just want to give a quick just snippet of what to expect. So as you join us, you'll know if this is for you or not. Stick around and hear what we have to say. We're going to have in Q&A form, so question and answer for Annie Cathryn, the author of The Friendship Breakup. This content will be for writers and readers, so you'll get to hear about the creative process, but also she'll reveal a little bit of behind the scenes, and we'll share some tips for writers and insights into the publishing industry. So before we get started into peppering Annie with all kinds of questions, let me just tell you who you have here today to answer those questions. So we have Susan. She is married with 2 nearly adult daughters living in the Chicago suburbs. And she's an avid reader of many genres and a reviewer. So thank you so much, because we all know how important that reviewers are. She loves books and concerts and movies and good food. And I am with you on that one. And then we have Katie joining us, who used to be an avid reader, she says, but with limited time has become quite choosy. And so she loves fiction and tends toward those heavier topics and characters. And she prefers the deep characters that show who learn something and change over time, which is awesome. That's definitely an indication of a great book. And she's a mother to 2 teenage boys and has a plethora of great friends in the reason, season, and lifetime categories, which is just perfectly fitting for The Friendship Breakup. And then I'm going to take myself next so we can leave Annie as the last to be introduced. I'm a freelance editor. I'm Kimberly Hunt. I'm a mom. I'm a friendship breakup survivor, and I'm known to like books better than people. And now for our star, why we're here today, so exciting. Annie Cathryn is an amazing women's fiction author. She's also the host of the Soulful Series video chat, which features authors of memoir and inspirational or motivational nonfiction. And she's the founder of a marketing consulting agency and has a supportive, adorable family. So you need to check out all the handles and follow Annie for sure. And then stick with us and learn more about The Friendship Breakup today. So I'll be quiet for a moment in case anybody wants to add or in case I missed anything.
No, that was great. Thank you for the warm welcome.
Sure. So glad to be here. Okay. So we have a lot to talk about because it's not just about friendships and friendship breakups, right? Your book has these subplots of how important motherhood is and marriage and following a career path. And then, of course, the balance of all of that. And then the themes that you touch upon are some of those heavy topics that Katie loves, the grief and abandonment and forgiveness, but the determination and getting through rejection or loneliness and recognizing unhealthy relationships and following your dreams and letting go of sometimes the idea of a perfect life. So we have a lot to dig into.
Wow, you know a lot about my book.
Oh my goodness. I have to admit, it was borderline stalkerish when Annie first said, "Here, do you want to read this draft? I don't know. Can you give me some feedback?" I probably sent question after question saying, "You're spying on me. How are you in my head? How do you know this is what I feel?" So she has written some amazing characters that, do you like my female polish? Sorry, total tangent.
I do like it.
But you have written amazing characters, and I definitely found Fallon to be super relatable.
Thank you.
So, now let's start though with what you've said. Fallon's bestie may be your favorite character. So tell us why you liked Mel.
Okay. So I loved Mel because she doesn't have a filter. She just says whatever is on her mind, and she doesn't care what other people think. And she kind of marches to her own drumbeat. And it's just something that if I could be like that in real life, I would love to be that way. So I just loved her character. She had some funny parts within the friendship breakup. She had some comic relief. And but also, beside that, she's just a really good friend to Fallon. And she moves away, and so I feel bad for Fallon because it was one of her good friends, but she goes to visit her. So I don't want to ruin the plot point, but I just really loved Mel. Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I got the comedic relief with her and liked her kind of attitude of, I'm going to be me and not worry about you when you think of it.
Yeah, I really loved the Mel character, and I could totally relate to that. Having that person in your life, that person that's maybe not there every day, that's not necessarily in your like coffee in the morning or go for a walk around the block person, but they're like, you know that they're gonna pick up on you at any point, and you could go to them and they're gonna tell you what it is. And also, a lot of times in the book, she felt really alone and she felt really isolated. But I thought, like, you have this person, like you always have this person, and having that, you can be a little bit more daring when you always have that extra person that you know is going to be there no matter what.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's true. Often when Fallon, she feels left out because all this stuff is happening around her and it's right in her face and she sees it daily. But if she takes a step back, she can see that there are good friends in her lives, even though, like you said, they're not there every day.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard when you're in the thick of it to see it.
Yeah.
All right. Should I give someone else a chance before I ask the next question?
Yeah. So since I'll ask a question since we're talking about characters. One of the questions that somebody had asked on Instagram is, do you base these characters, Annie, on people in your life? So who inspires them?
So there is one character, Avery, who is based on my best friend, Jen. And I'm revealing this to you guys in public. She knows it's her in private, but I don't think I've ever said this to anyone. Because I met Jen in college, and Fallon meets Avery in college, and Avery has a similar personality to Jen. But otherwise, the other characters, they're not based on anyone in particular, but I do take different personalities and meld them together into one character. But they're fiction. But I might have taken someone in my life, this little part of their personality, and put it in Fallon, or put it in Beatrice, or the husband. So yeah, but that doesn't model to a T any one person.
So I know that authors, the characters really come to life, and you talk about them like they're real people. So do you dream about them? Like, you know how like people in your life sometimes appear in your dreams? do any of these appear in your dreams?
That's a good question. You know what? They didn't appear in my dreams, but as I was writing the book, they would pop in my mind at odd times, like if I was driving or if I was in the shower, times where I was really just kind of zoning out. And this is what I was writing, so the messages would come from they're coming from the characters to me as I'm writing, and I'm actually writing my second book now, and the same thing is happening, that I put the book aside and I'm somewhere else, and all of a sudden the characters are talking to me. I know that sounds weird, but it does happen.
It is amazing where you get the ideas. I remember this is so far away. It's not recent training, but when I was running and training for a marathon, that's when I would puzzle through some of the things. Like if I was trying to help an author with a plot point, or to, pick up the pace, as I'm just doing monotonous foot in front of the other, that's where the problems were solved.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Because you'll want to be sitting with the manuscript and doing it and be like, okay, I need to fix this. But that's not always the case when inspiration strikes.
I think that's the same for any job. Like even in banking, right before you go to bed or in the shower, that's when you have like the best ideas for work.
Yeah.
Was there a part of the book that you struggled with, that you just got stuck on and kept like turning or rewriting, or you just didn't like the flow? Or did you always have the structure of it and you knew where it was going to go, and like, did you ever get stuck?
Oh yeah. So I don't know, I don't remember exactly what part it was, but there's this term in the industry called the saggy middle. And what happens is, as if you're not outlining, which I did not outline when I wrote this book, I get to like, so it was about 40,000 words. So wherever that is in the book, which I haven't looked back, that's where I started getting writer's block. And that was the saggy middle. And I couldn't get past it. And I'm trying to remember what I did it eventually came. But yeah, so now I'm outlining, and this is based also on my agent. She, when she picked up this book, she made me she made me outline it after it was written. So I went back and outlined it. And so now when I write a book, I start with an outline, so I don't get stuck in that saggy middle and trying to figure out how to get out of it. I have an outline to refer to.
Yeah, that's a great topic to dive into just a little deeper, because that concept of reverse outlining, like outlining after you've written the book, is exactly what I do when I'm doing a developmental edit, because then I'm getting acquainted chapter by chapter with what's happening versus what the author wanted to happen. So that's one trick. And then there's also having an outline at the start, even if you don't stick to it, is a place to come back to and be like, oh yeah, I kind of want to work it and get back to what I intended here. And so it's never I can't outline, it's too much structure, because you don't have to stick to it. But it is a nice kind of crutch when you get to a stuck point.
Yeah, and the reason I didn't outline is because I thought it would stifle my creativity. I thought, okay, because these characters are constantly talking to me as I'm writing or, zoning out or whatever, I felt like if I outlined that it would be too forced and too structured. But what I found is that outlining actually helped me stay on track, but I still was creative. I was being creative as I was creating the outline. And then when I sat down, just like you said, I didn't stick to it to a T. I was able to improvise and put other things in. So, but it was nice to have that structure to refer to, even if I didn't stick to it totally.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see what else I have here for you.
Can I just ask another question while you're looking at it? Did you know how the book was going to end? Like, you have a title and you kind of, like, it kind of tells you something about
Yes.
the relationships, but did you know that there would be the main problem, and that would be how it was resolved?
Yes. So that's the one thing about me, is I cannot stand not having an ending. So it's one of the first things that I have in my head. Even though I might not know before, when I didn't outline, wouldn't know where the middle was going, the end was always there. There's something about me I am like obsessive. I don't know what it is, but if I can't have that ending just hanging in the balance. So yes, I do.
So when you're reading for pleasure, are you skipping ahead and reading the ending first?
No, I
Okay.
don't do that when I'm reading, just when I'm writing.
Okay.
However, TV shows are different. So like if there's a true crime show on, I literally will go online to find out what the heck happened. Because I cannot watch I'm sitting here looking like, okay, what happened? And so that's the only time I'll go to an ending, is a true crime show. And then when I'm writing, but no, because I know there are some people who read the endings first.
Yes.
But I'm not that person. Yeah.
I'm not either. I could never understand it.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you about this idea of pursuing a dream and advancing a career and being a parent all at the same time, and how it's very chaotic. So being an author isn't just about getting the words down. Like you've talked about, the outlining and the editing and the work that goes into it. How do you balance all those writerly related tasks with also your personal life?
So I always wanted to be an author, but I didn't sit down and write my first book. And actually, The Friendship Breakup is my fourth book. But my first three, the first one I wrote, I said, I need to do this. This is something I want to do. So I waited till my daughter was in kindergarten and was in school full time to focus on. And I was also doing a marketing business, but I culled down my clients because I knew that this was my dream. So I kept like one client that I didn't want to give up, and I sat down while she was in school and I wrote for at least 4 hours. I tried to, but sometimes life gets in the way. So, but I had to work around her activities, her school, so that I could be present for her when she got home from school and stuff like that. So yeah, it is a tightrope. And so I was doing marketing while she was a baby too. And I was freelancing. So she would nap and I would work. So I was so used to always working around her schedule anyway. So yeah, and it's tough. It is tough, but you have to if it's your dream, you have to make it a priority. Like even the personal life, it's like sometimes friends would say you want to do this or that, and I had to just create boundaries and say I can do this then, but I can't do this now because I've made writing a priority at this time. So
yeah, I've heard the saying that you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And that's really that coming to life. Like you can do anything, but you just can't do it all at once.
Yes. Yes, you're so right. That is so true.
So come back to the fact that The Friendship Breakup is your debut, but there are 3 other manuscripts out there that came before it. What did you learn from those unpublished manuscripts?
So I do not have a creative writing background. I didn't go to school for it. And so I just thought, I'm going to write. So when I wrote my first book, I really just wrote it. And I didn't follow any pacing or any of the industry standards that you're supposed to do to keep the reader hooked in the pages or keep turning the pages. So after I had queried that book and no agents wanted it, I had to start reading a lot of writing books. And so then I started reading those, and then I was applying what I was learning to the second and third book. And then, so the first 2 were fantasy. And I don't know why. I know Susan laughs at me. I don't know why I wrote fantasy. It was something I wanted to do. Well, they weren't being picked up anyway. So my third book was a women's fiction, and that one got, I think, 1 full manuscript request. So then I realized that, okay, maybe women's fiction is where my voice is. So then I, everything I learned from that book, I then applied to The Friendship Breakup, and luckily that one was picked up. So, yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about that journey and some of the, support you've had along the way from bookstagrammers like Susan, or reader feedback or critique partners? I think
Sure.
you even had a writing coach, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the first 3 books I wrote, and I felt like it was a lonely endeavor. I just sat at my desk and wrote. And then I realized, why am I not connecting with people? I don't know. Well, I think I was afraid to tell people I was doing it. I don't know why. But I just decided, okay, I need to start connecting with people because it's starting to feel too lonely. And so the first thing I did was, I think I joined Critique Match, and that's where I met you. And I think in the meantime, and I was on Instagram as well. But so I met you, and you beta read my book. And then I had joined a Women's Fiction Writers Association, and I met my critique partner, and we exchanged pages, and that was helpful. And, I bet you that's another reason The Friendship Breakup got picked up, because people were reading it now and giving me all of this feedback as I was going along, whereas the other books, I didn't have feedback on any of it. So, and then I joined Bookstagram and started connecting with other readers. And that's when I met Susan, and she beta read my book as well. And yeah, so I've had all the support. And then I hired a author coach as well who helped me with the query letter. And she also helped me get into the mindset of what do you like, clear goals. What do you want? And as soon as you get your goals clear, it's fascinating how everything just falls into place. And I don't know what it is, but if you write your goals down, it's something just gets in motion, and then you start to accomplish them. I don't know if there's some phenomenon or something, but it happened in my life. So
that's a good tip. I think I do probably annual business planning and goal planning, but I could be better about coming back to it along the way and following through.
yeah.
Was it hard to, if you were having people give you information along the way versus waiting for it to be at the end, was that hard because you were kind of letting them in a little bit, maybe when you weren't as comfortable with it being done?
Yeah. So I welcome feedback, and gosh, I was so lucky to have very polite, positive people in my life. I mean, there were a couple on Critique Match that were, I don't know, they weren't as positive, but then I didn't really, I kind of like stopped that relationship because I really wanted people who would, write in the margin something, constructive, but not be mean about it. So, yeah, I guess you're vulnerable when you put out what you're writing and you don't know how it's going to be received. Well, that's how I felt. But I feel so blessed for the people that did come into my life and who recognize, how to tactfully give feedback.
There's an art to it with developmental editing. Like it's easy to read the story and give feedback for what's working well, because that's also helpful, and to give, diplomatic feedback for what's may not be working. But when I have to remember to do it also when I'm copy editing, because I'll just go through and I'm thinking, this is nuts and bolts, it's spelling, grammar, like I don't need to be positive. But I go and I make sure that there are at least 5 to 10 positive comments throughout, because I am reading someone's book, baby. This is their story. And from just a reader's perspective, I'll let them know what I enjoyed, even though it's not exactly in the job description of a copy editor.
Yeah. No, that's good. And as an author, I appreciate that because, I'm writing, I'm putting myself out there. And then I love when someone says, I laughed at this part, or I enjoyed this line, or, and I even like the part where like, oh, I love this, but you can add more description here. Or I would like, what do you think about, always asking a question to further the plot along. Well, what are your thoughts on this, rather than telling someone what to do, is rather, questioning. And I enjoy that feedback.
So Annie, I have a question, and it kind of goes to editing. So did you have your book edited before you went to query agents?
So when I queried agents, I did not have it edited yet. However, the one agent who did pick up my book, before she signed with me, or before I signed with her, she asked me if I would consider hiring a professional editor. She said she loved the story, she loved the voice, but she thought that it needed a little bit of work, structure and pacing, probably because I didn't outline. So that is when I hired Kimberly, and she did amazing. So she did the manuscript evaluation and helped me really work through these pacing issues and a whole other host of things. And and she was quick, and she had read it already, so she had beta read it, so she understood what it was about already. And then after she helped me with it, I went back to the agent who asked me to get it edited, and then she signed with me. So I was very happy that I hired Kimberly because it really was a stepping stone in my journey.
Yeah. It sounds like I do want to come back to editing because I am curious about that, Kimberly. So I do want to ask you a question if that's okay. But before we get there, it sounds like you had to invest not only time to write this book, but a lot of resources, i.e. money, to get it to the point where it was published.
Yes. Yeah. And I actually looked for budget conscious things. So Kimberly actually had a deal going on when I hired her. So I was like, okay, I can fit this into my budget. But I do realize that not everyone has the resources to put towards their dream. I don't know. There's a lot of free resources out there. I know, like Camille Pagan was my coach. She does offer some discounted rates for people who need services and might not be able to afford them. And then Kimberly runs specials all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's a good point. And I just say to anybody who needs that type of help to do some research and see if you can find helpful people who, that it might not break the bank.
Yeah. So in order, you needed resources, maybe some investment of money, but also the time and patience to go through that query process. There's so many indie authors out there that I do think they are great writers, but they just, because they're going the indie route, they just do not get the recognition and airtime because of that.
Yeah, I know. And I know you've sent me some authors that you love and you're like, oh, these are indie authors and they're not traditionally published, and you're like, they're so good. And yeah, I don't know. I think the thing is I decided that that's what I wanted. I wanted to be traditionally published, and I just kept going until someone said yes. And it took 8 months for to get an agent. So I think those indie authors, if they really wanted to be traditionally published, they just to keep going, because if they're that good, I am sure that they would be picked up. It's just a matter of finding the right person at the right time.
Yeah. But still being aware that the investment is needed, as far as like, you still have a bunch of marketing obligations, right? Whether you go self-publishing or traditional, there's still investment of time and money in putting a book out there.
Yes. Yeah. So
do you think a book can be successful not on Instagram? I'm in that whole Bookstagram world, which was new to me like 2 years ago. And I don't even know how a book can be successful if not on Bookstagram.
Yeah, I felt that way too. But honestly, I think that a lot of publishers don't put much stock into social media. So I honestly don't know, because there are authors who are not on these social media. They still do very well. Like Leanne Moriarty, I don't think she's on Instagram, and she is, her books are awesome. And she sells a lot of them. Point. But you know what? I don't know how those authors get out there. I really don't know. It is a mystery to me.
Yeah. Well, I think the readers are still putting their books out there, right? Yes, or the publishers too. Yeah. I think, are focusing on the social media.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think that I'm a very good representative reader in this regard, because like the character in your book, 2 years ago, I gave up social media, except for you. My Instagram. I do have Instagram, but it's only zoos and random people who give philosophy lessons and Kimberly. And so the way that I find books, like this book I found because Kimberly puts up these posts all the time. She's so good about putting up posts, and I read them, but then usually her and we don't have a similar genre. likes, and so usually I'm just like, ugh. But then this one kind of caught my attention, and so I do think, yes, that was through social media, but there are people that are good, like, I'm at the grocery store and there's a book and it, like, I like the cover, or it has like an intriguing title. I'm a huge airport like book buyer, where like I fly to London and I go to the books, like I stop at a store in the airport and I pay way too much money for a book that I will definitely leave at the hotel when I leave. But so I think there's not no hope for people who aren't on social media.
Yeah, and I don't even think I pushed the Friendship Breakup. I put a post out there about it and you're like, I want to read that one.
Yeah, I was like, this one sounds good. Like, I think it might be the only one that I've been like really like, because again, I haven't been reading as much lately. So I just haven't. And so I haven't like given myself the time. And I think that was the first book that I'd read in like 3 months. And when Kimberly gave it to me, she's like, take good care of it. And I just thought it was one that I reached out and said, this looks intriguing. So I think this one, you might have there's a little bit of a intrigue. It stands out amongst other ones in the genre.
Oh, I feel so honored that you read my book and you reached out. That's so cool. But I love what you said about, airport bookshops, and because before I was on Instagram, I think I got most of my books at Barnes and Noble, or I would just love perusing the store, or like you said, grocery stores. So yeah, if you're traditionally published and you have a good publisher who gets you in those places, that's how your books are being sold. But not all books are put in grocery stores or or Barnes and Nobles either. So yeah, I don't know. There's just so many books. It's crazy.
Hey, that's another tip that we should share for writers, is that libraries. So even if you're indie published, you can get your book in your local libraries. And I have done that for many authors, where I have a very small town now that I no longer live directly in Baltimore. And I am constantly giving my suggestions. Why don't we have this in circulation? I need this.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah, I used to go to the library a lot too, and I haven't lately. I need to get back to that.
Yeah, my grocery store buying habit had to be curtailed for a little bit, because then it was so now I am a library lender. Like, okay. I log in and I say, I want this book, even if it says it's in stock at my library that I could literally just go and drive, I still request it and make them put it into the little like pickup place where it's under my name.
Yeah.
Me too.
I do love that my library has a drive-up window. It's so lazy, but I love it.
Yes.
So I have a question about friendship breakups. Kimberly, you said you had one. I've had one. I've had more than one. I won't take it personally. Maybe I should. But so Annie, have you had a lot of people reach out to you to share their friendship breakup stories? Is it a common theme among, I assume, moms?
Yes, I have had readers who have reviewed it. Well, I've read, a lot of times I just read the reviews, and they say in the review, what?
I was just gasping because so many authors are like, I can't read reviews.
No, I read them. I read
them
every
all.
single one of them. And then I try to find them online. No, just kidding. So yeah, so in the reviews, they would say, I've been through a heartbreaking friendship breakup. It's so painful. I'm so happy this author wrote about it. And I really love those, because I wanted people to feel like they weren't alone in this journey of being ghosted, excluded. I think, I was myself, and it really shocked me, because I thought that I was over this part in my life. I thought, this is high school stuff, right? No, I mean, it happened in my 40s, and I was blindsided. So I couldn't believe it. I know I could go on and on about that, but anyway, so yeah, so people, and then there are other people who have reached out, DM'd me on Instagram to tell me that that they resonated with it and they understood what Fallon was going through. And yeah, so I mean, that's the best compliment when readers reach out and tell you that, that they felt similar to a character. You don't want them to go through that pain, but just the fact that they could see themselves and just feel not alone, in the whole situation.
Yeah. I thought Fallon and the whole friendship circle that she had was very relatable for me in, Chicago suburbia. And I read a lot of the reviews on your books too, Annie, because I'm curious, and I've seen some reviews that could not relate to the kind of cattiness, pettiness of those friends. And I wanted to know, I had to find out, like, where do you live? Because like, by me.
Where do you live? Let's move there. You've never dealt with any of this?
Yeah, I know the suburbs, Annie. I know where we need to go. Yeah. I've been researching.
I love that. Yeah, I know. I guess I knew that the Friendship Breakup wouldn't resonate with everyone. But I didn't realize, like, some reviewers are like, this, I don't know where the heck this character came from. It just, that caught me off guard too. I'm like, okay, well, like you said, let's move to where you are.
So that's something I really wanted to ask about, because, and I'll confess, at the beginning of the story, I was like, here's another 40-year-old mom who's overwhelmed by her one child. And, she's like scatterbrained and she's, awkward and these things. And I'm like, here we go again. And I wanted nothing. I was kind of like, I don't like this character, this 40-year-old woman character. And throughout the book, as she started to develop a little bit more and she started to like think about her past and really start to like figure out who she was, I started to really like her. Yeah. But then, and I love the fact that this was about a friendship breakup, because I do think there's this weird thing happening to women in their 40s, that a lot of things change and a lot of things come back that maybe weren't there, or they like are allowing themselves to have more deeper friendships because their kids are starting to grow up a little bit. But I thought it was so ironic that I get so mad about like how people treat and look at 40-year-old women, that I was doing it too in the beginning of the book. I was like, oh, another one of those. And I was like, wait a minute, no, it's fine. Like, no, they're real people who have these real problems.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not alone in that. I actually just got a message this morning from someone who was from my neighborhood growing up. And she's like, I didn't like Fallon. And she goes, I didn't like her at first. And then I kept reading and I just fell in love with her and her journey and what she's going through. So, but I'm glad you stuck with it, because some people won't. Some people will be like, I can't stand Fallon. This is it. I'm done. Did not finish the book. But so I'm really glad when people, if they don't like a character, they just stick it out a little bit because maybe they'll find out in the end, like you did, that it works out. There's character growth.
But I think it's more that like dismissive, like feeling that dismissiveness of women at a certain age who are going through what I think a lot of people look at as like catty or small problems that aren't really small, but like, and so it's an initial like push away of that. Like, oh, I want the character that like just witnessed a murder, or like some tragic, big, like real problem is in their midst, instead of like, no, actually these problems, these like dealing with getting your kid to school in the morning when roads are closed, like that's a real, the struggle is real.
Yeah. The line is crazy.
Yeah, I know. You're gonna get the people that are gonna be like, oh gosh, their life is so terrible. But I really felt like this character, I mean, that's her life. That's what she's going through. And like you said, it's like, just to dismiss somebody for what they're going through, that's not, everybody has issues, and maybe deep-seated ones. And I don't know. It's just, yeah, and people are so quick to be like, another, yeah, like you said, another one of these. But it can be painful experience to people that are going through that, you know?
I mean, I don't want to do any spoilers, but Fallon learns that herself, like not to judge so quickly that, other people have struggles as well.
Yeah.
That's something I was going to raise as well, is I loved the resolution because it wasn't neat, and it wasn't like you could see, oh, everything's fixed. And I think she really grew in her understanding of it. And I think that my number one thing that I always tell my kids all the time is like think about it from another person's perspective. Like there's multiple perspectives of this problem. And the fact that she was ultimately able to like learn of another perspective on it and figure it out. But then by that point, she was sort of at a different place where she could like figure out what to do with that. I just loved the resolution. To me, that's why I asked if you had designed the end going into it, because that felt like really I made my heart feel good.
Oh, good. Yeah, we can't spoil anything here, but yeah, that was part of Fallon's journey to grow. And I've heard that from other reviewers too, that they thought it was going to end a certain way, and they were hoping beyond hope it didn't end the way that they thought. And so I think that's what you're getting at too, is like, yeah, because I think then the book would definitely be like a 1-star. If it ended a different way.
Yeah, it would be too. It wasn't a neat tied in a bow thing, which it easily could be if you were being very formulaic, or you were being very just like wanting it to be very surface. But yeah. I liked that it. I think one of the things on the back said like, oh, it's like a warm or it's an escapist romp. And normally escapist romps stay very up here, kind of like, oh, let's not go, whatever. But I felt like, no, there was way more to it than just an escape. There was, I felt like it got a much deeper resolution.
Yeah.
Hey, since you have it right there, flash it up. I didn't get to see the pretty cover that matches my nails.
Well, you have the advanced reader's copy. Cool.
Yeah. And Kimberly lent it to me, and it's signed. And I was like, I didn't even break the spine. Like when I was reading it, I was like, don't break the spine.
It must have been very scary when I handed it over.
That's funny. Oh. Yeah. So, well, let me ask some questions too. So, okay. So Susan, like when you're reading, it doesn't have to be about my book, but when you're reading a book, what makes you want to keep reading, like and turning the pages?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty wide variety of books and genres that I like, although fantasy is not one of them. It really is like the characters, and there's just the way that some authors write that I connect with, and some that I don't. Yeah. And I'm not in the writer community, so I'm not able to put into words of what that is. But there are some books that the words fly off the page, and other books that I think maybe are overly descriptive. I do tend towards character-driven novels, so I don't need all this plot focus, but they have to be interesting characters, and the story does need to move at a decent clip.
Yeah.
So I probably would not be a fan of literature. Okay. Classic literature.
Yeah.
I haven't read a lot in my life. Barely made it through those required readings in high school and college.
Yeah. What about you, Katie? What makes you turn the pages?
Oh, I just love Annie Cathryn. No, I'm kidding. That was as soon as you said those like literature ones, the book that I forced myself to read because I was like, I should read this, was Annie Cathryn, and it just went on and on and on.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
I do too. Actually, that's the only classic book I love.
Yeah,
but go on, answer.
Mine tend to be I don't realize that I'm liking a book. I'll pick it up because somebody recommends it, or I read the back and I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting. And the next thing I know, I'm halfway through it. And I don't know, I can't really put into words why I'm halfway through it. Sometimes, like I read a book recently that it was so like formulaic. It was like a murder mystery. I'm not a huge fan of murder mysteries, but it was a little bit of a murder mystery. And I just kept but I was like, wait, turns out I really like this. I'm reading, I have to know how it ends. And it could just be, I have to know how it ends. But some books that I love, like The Goldfinch is one of my favorite books. I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's one of my favorite books. And it's like the character arc starts from a teenager, ends when he's like in his 30s. And it's just the arc of the story, the depth of it. And then something unexpected will happen. And when they throw something unexpected in there, that really gets me to keep going. Like, and it's interesting because I never thought about pace in a book. I've thought about it in a movie, but now that you're revealing author secrets, I can now see that is important. Like the things that get me hooked are I'm reading, and then something unexpected happens, which keeps me going.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I can
I take a stab at answering it too?
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, what keeps me going is that same thing. I love the characters. I love when they have the unexpected, like the conflict that they're facing. That's what keeps me reading, is to figure out how could they possibly resolve this or get past it, or find a happy ending, because those are the books that I read. And so it's characters that either are relatable or have, I'm learning something from them and in their journey to overcome the conflict. But it's also on a more micro level. It's the trickiness of ending. Like, I like short, quick chapters, and I like them to end with like an unanswered question or something on the line that I have to keep going. So I will play mind games with myself that I will turn off the light and I will stop reading at the end of this chapter. And then it's like, oh, but the clock is 10:50. I could go another 10 minutes. And then I'm like, oh, but now I need to know what happens. And then I'm up way too late.
Yeah. Yes. No, yeah, I agree. I am like both, I think all of you, in the sense where I don't like a lot. I like short chapters, and I do like the unexpected, but yeah, I'm not the flower, like, well, Katie might like this. I don't like a lot of description that bogs stuff down, like Susan, or I don't care that the lampshade is red, white, and blue and has been on for 5 minutes. And oh, I like your mug, Kimberly. Yeah, so I cannot. I don't know why do some authors just like spend like 10 minutes on what the room looks like. That
Kimberly and we just had a text about this. We had a bunch of people. We were talking about a book, and I won't say what book it is, but I was like, we get it. You live in a swamp and you like birds. Move on.
Oh, I know what book that is. That's so funny. Yeah. No, my books are not like I actually have. So that was one thing too. Like I wrote a first draft bare bones, and I have to go back and add the description. And I try to do it as quick as possible, because I don't like to write a ton of description, because
I don't pay attention to description, and I'm so bad at paying attention to description that James Patterson, who wrote the Alex Cross novels, I had no idea he was Black. Oh. I didn't know. I mean, I read that book, and then they turned it into a movie, and I didn't even realize it. Yeah, because I do not pay attention to descriptions.
Yeah, you just gloss right over it.
And so there are a lot of skimmers, and that's why I think you need a balance of the dialogue and the narrative. It can't just be all prose for on and on about. But I think you do need to mix up in that, like you did. You went back and you added details that kind of immerse you in the scene. It might not be a description about a character's appearance, but it has to be like the sights and sounds and smells to make you feel like there are some readers that identify and kind of picture themselves as the character. And then there are others that just read it and feel like they are watching a movie. And so you need to provide those immersive details that meet the reader's needs.
Yeah. And I think the characters look a certain way to the author. And I do think you need to put that in there. I am definitely better about that now, where I'll get into a book and then I'll think, I don't know what this character looks like. What color is their hair? Or, and then I have to go back because I need to form, a picture, because if they make it a movie, I don't want to be, surprised. Right.
That's why a lot of people hate the movies, because it's not how they envision the characters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer the book is always better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've never actually had one that the movie was better.
Nope.
I've had some where the movie is as good or almost as good.
Yeah. That's if they follow it. That's if they follow it to a T, though. A lot of times the scriptwriters will change some things, and then you're like, no, the original is better. But
and cut out a lot because of time.
Yeah.
Going back to the classics, though, I did enjoy the refresher of going to see Little Women years after having read it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely.
If your
Kimberly,
book was
can
made
I
into
ask
a
you?
movie, if your book was made
go
into a
ahead.
movie, who would you want Fallon? Who would you want to play Fallon?
Oh my gosh, I am so bad at casting. I'm trying to think, like maybe Natalie Portman or I don't really know. That's the first one that popped in my head.
Do you have somebody in mind, Katie, that would make a good Fallon?
I was thinking like not her, because I don't think she's a good actress, but like a Kelly Clarkson, like somebody that's just like says things and trips over herself sometimes, but doesn't do it in a way doesn't do it in an offensive way, but just like
Oh yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Did you have someone in mind, Susan, if you were casting?
No, I don't. I didn't. And sometimes I read books and I see characters that would play them, but I didn't see Fallon as somebody who is a current actress.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the other one I thought of is Anne Hathaway, because she did The Devil Wears Prada, I think. So that kind of struck me too. Maybe.
Yeah, I like that. That would be a good one. Sorry, Susan, you were going to ask a question before?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about editing. So there are different types of editing, Kimberly. So as I understand, can you tell me a little bit about what the different types of editing are?
Yeah, that's a awesome question, because I can't do it all. And there are different types of editing. So there's the developmental editing, which is way more big picture and looking at like the story elements. So like we've talked today about like plot and pace and character development. And then I look at the like overall structure of a book and kind of the story arc. So that's early in the process, developmental editing. And then you get to more of like a line editing, where it's line by line, you're taking what was maybe drafted and then looking at word choice and flow and improving at that level, at the sentence level and the paragraph level. And then there's what I called earlier, like the nuts and bolts, is getting down to just copy editing, where you're looking at spelling, grammar, usage, punctuation. And then it's not technically editing, but we shouldn't forget about proofreading, because it is essential at the end. But those, I think, there's other variations. People call things different, like content and substantive, and there are different other names of editing, but those are like kind of the buckets of and when you would use them.
Thank you.
Sure. So Annie, you talked before about you're writing your second book. Will you give us a sneak peek into what's the upcoming project about?
No,
too soon?
Yeah, I guess I can tell you a little bit. I honestly, I don't have a deal yet. So it's kind of just in the draft stage. But it's also, so the Friendship Breakup was, based on me going through a painful situation. So my next book actually is an experience I had in my early 30s, and I took a sabbatical to Africa.
Oh, amazing.
And yeah, I took 30 days off of work. I had banked all this vacation. So the book, it's kind of like an Eat, Pray, Love type of story. And the main character she gets passed over from a promotion that, she was really hoping for. And then she's like, I'm out of here. So she's like, instead of quitting her job, she decides to go to Africa. And she has a college age daughter who is also going through some issues, and they both go to Africa together, and they're on a journey of self-discovery there. So you are the first to hear about that.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I feel privileged, and I look forward to hearing more about it as you go along.
Yeah.
All right. Should we put up the last chance for questions? I think we're coming up on our time. Oh, that's a really big, obnoxious banner. All right. Well, I do want to say thank you so much for your time, for everybody joining today and making this a fun session to ask questions and find out more about the Friendship Breakup. Yeah. And support Annie, because I think it's awesome, and I wish you much success.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciated this. I love connecting with you all. It was just so fun.
Yeah, I definitely recommended the book to a few other friends who I know who've been through similar things, and we have a couple friends who are into reading, and I'm like, here, but I didn't give her this one because this one, go buy it. Go buy the book.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Luck with your next book.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.